So, is surveillance pricing a new way for companies to rip you off? I think there's definitely something new going on in terms of how consumers look for different products, and we're hearing that, let's say you want to buy a flight, and you will get potentially different pricing depending on your IP address, what it knows about you, and the likelihood that you're willing to pay more. And they've also heard reports that, let's say you're in San Francisco and you need to go to New York City, you'll see higher prices on a lot of sites versus if you are based in Phoenix, Arizona. And similar, hearing reports like if you're on a Mac versus a PC, Mac users will probably be shown higher priced options or shown higher prices or fewer discounts. And that's one of the things they also do is it's not necessarily the prices have changed. It's sometimes that you just don't see the same discounts, but they give extra discounts to other people to get them to buy right now. And in some ways, it definitely makes a lot of sense to have that in a marketplace, but understandably, a lot of people find that a little bit icky. They feel like, well, I should be able to know what the price is and make my decision accordingly. But in the real world, people do practice price discrimination and try to get the best deal for themselves that they can. And people, on the one hand, they need volume, but on the other hand, they also need high margin sales as well. So there's a balancing act which companies have to do, and often it makes they're going to make more money if they discriminate based on who they're talking to. So how does this play into B2B? I think there's some things which people can do in terms of, if you're purchasing flights and other things, you can definitely go out and maybe even try using a VPN to see if you can get different options for the goods and services you need for your business, especially, if you're doing things like a flight and a hotel, maybe trying a VPN to see if that adjusts things if you get a different price. That could be helpful. I do suspect they'll have some additional ways to figure out who you are. And a lot of people, of course, want to do things from within an app. And if you're searching for prices based and they know who the user is who's logged in, well, then they're going to, be able to adjust their prices accordingly based on what they know about you. And an topic which I deal with a lot is big ticket purchases, B2B IT vendor services. So we're talking about things from especially wide area network, internet services, telecom services, but you're also looking at other types of things like software, seats, cloud services, etc. One of the big things I found is that a lot of these types of services, nobody knows what anything should cost. So I'll give an illustrative story. I was in a conference room in Manhattan, right by Penn Station, and there was a guy there who's a sales rep from Lucent. This was back in the day. And he was telling us about this great software which we could sell. And he was saying, the great thing about this is nobody has any idea what it costs. So you can sell it for $100,000, but you can also give it away for free because we just want adoption. And so that was really eye-opening for me. And of course, with software, it is free, each additional copy. So it does make a lot of sense to give it away in certain cases. And I'm sure if people really wanted good support and maintenance, they would have had to probably pay something for that. So that's a very extreme example, but I think I've seen that all the time where, you don't know if you're getting a good deal on things. And a lot of times people have no idea like which services they're getting a good deal on and which services they're paying, twice, 10 times as much as other people. And this is where I come in, and I found what's really helpful, and I advise other people to do, is to find experts who understand what you're buying and can help you navigate and help you figure out what are the good prices out there. How do you get a good deal? How do you get good pricing on certain services? So kind of recent example, I've had some clients who are buying a lot of cell phone plans every month, and they weren't, they were like, we'd like to use Verizon. We're looking at that, but they weren't aware of some of the aggressive deals which AT&T happened to be giving at the moment. So having that inside information was really helpful for them. And then that inside information can also be used to negotiate with incumbent vendors. Similarly, I've seen cases where I go in and talk to companies, and they're like really sick of their vendor, but we're able to come in, get some competitive pricing information, and talk to the vendor and say, hey, you need to clean up your act, can you do these things, and the incumbent vendor fixes everything. And then we let them know, like, hey, they're willing to make these changes, so you don't have to go through the pain of migration, because if you move to another vendor, you're really not going to save that much money. So that really helps them. But then by contrast, there are other situations where they think, oh, okay, our current vendor's fine, and this is great, we don't really want to make any changes. But then once they realize how much more, a company like AT&T or whoever is charging them versus what other people are getting in terms of pricing, and if the carrier isn't willing to match that pricing, they might really want to leave and pick up those additional savings. And so I think every situation's different, but you definitely see this a lot where people aren't aware of all the discounts and all the pricing options which they have. And vendors really have no incentive to tell you these things. So if you're an account manager, they don't call it surveillance pricing, but they're expected to try to get the best price from the customer that they can and really push that. And they're going to potentially get in trouble if they let them know, like, oh, hey, I'm getting these other companies massive discounts on a lot of these services, because the vendor reps have a quota, and if they notice, the management notices that clients are spending less money, which they will of course notice, then the vendor rep kind of gets in trouble for that, and they feel like they have to make up that revenue and find more revenue somewhere else. So generally sales reps, they're just going to be chasing new customers, chasing new revenue, and they don't have time to help you with this. But that's one of the things I focus on. Is I have a network of people who can help with all sorts of IT vendor services, all sorts of telecom services, clouds, software as a service, whatever it is. My big focus, of course, is WAN, internet, and voice services. But we have experts in all sorts of different areas who come from that industry and really understand, like, hey, if you want to buy a bunch of Microsoft, we can help you get a good deal. If you're spending a lot on Amazon Web Services, we can help you get better pricing and discounts. So please definitely reach out to me. I'm Anders Mikkelsen with Berlin Pacific. I'm on LinkedIn. But also, too, just keep an eye out in general for people who are experts, who understand how to get you the best pricing, because companies are going to charge different companies different amounts for the same service. And that's just the way of the world. If they can charge $100,000 to one customer, they'll do it. And if they can charge $10,000 or give it away, or they feel like it makes sense to give it away for free to another customer, they'll definitely do that, especially if it's something which is a high margin product, or where each additional unit doesn't really generate any cost. So if it's like a software service or software as a service, where there's not a lot of actual labor which goes into delivering, then they can charge wildly different prices, and they will. And also technology can make things a lot more efficient, and they will be able to charge less for certain things. But then there are other things where you don't know what you don't know, and it turns out that companies might not really make a whole lot of money on providing that service. So if you object and say, oh, I don't really want to pay that much, I think I should pay 50% less, they'll say, oh, well, that's nice, but we just don't want to work with you anymore. At which point, you don't get any help at all, which can actually be worse in some cases. So you really want to have somebody look out for people who can help you figure out what is the best pricing is there and what are your best pricing options. Hope that helps. Look forward to talking to you guys.